Welcome. This is part 2 for the 8-speed side of the LX M569. We're going to disassemble each part and then clean it, grease it and assemble it back together again. So let's begin. Underneath here we've got a Phillips screw to remove to take off the pod cover. I forgot, before you begin, make sure you remove the tension on the spring by moving this lever for the dial to go up onto high. Underneath here we have a Phillips bolt to take off. I'm going to use my trusty Swiss knife. Now you have this plate to remove that's holding the return spring for the lever, so it's latched onto here as well on the other end. Let's lift it up. There's a bushing to remove. And underneath a fin washer. Fragile, so be careful. You can lift up that lever. There's a plastic, it's a nylon bushing to take off. On that lever there's a pull to remove. You have a little clip here to take off, so you're going to need something sharp to remove it. There's then a pull and the spring. There's a spring to remove here. I'm going to just unlatch that. Before we take anything else off, we're going to remove the plastic cover here. So underneath, or on the other side of this, there's a screw here to take off and two here. Hopefully yours isn't rusty and hasn't corroded. The head hasn't corroded, so you can actually remove that small screw. That tends to happen. So we can now take off all these plastic covers. This seal comes off. Within that lever there's another bushing and a another fin washer. There's a tiny clip here to take off. We can now remove this metal plate. We're now going to take off that pull, and we can remove this spring. And finally this ceramic nylon bushing. Let's take off the sprocket. Number 3 was on the top. And to remove that cam, we're going to move this dial out the way as it's sitting inside. We can now remove this spring. It's very stuck on. Okay. Underneath here there's a bushing. We might need to remove this to tension that spring underneath the cam when we're putting it back together. I don't know yet. If you do need to remove that, you need to take off this sticker with something sharp, and then you can actually take that off completely. Same for the dial. If you want to remove the dial, you need to unscrew that tiny little screw then, and there's a tiny spring that's helping it return. Same thing on the last video. I keep some parts grouped up, making it easier for us to clean it and also to assemble it together after. So I'm going to let you get on with doing that, and we'll begin by putting grease and then assembling it together again. I've given everything a clean. I'm now going to put some grease on the pivoting parts and the springs, or parts that have friction or contact. Please wear some gloves. I've noticed over the months of using grease on a regular basis, my skin is clearly affected by it. So that's my advice. Let's begin on the assembly. So grab this cam part. We're going to put one tip of the spring in the center there. We're going to put it into that hole. And you want to try and fit that around the that center ring. The other tip of that spring is going to eventually go here. So on this part here, you want the bushing that slides on the top, and that's going to, this cam's going to fit through. Now we want this to be sort of tensioned, so what we're going to do is we're going to flicker this back, push down, and get that into this position. You can now pull back. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab something to pull that spring into and bring it to the hole here. So I'm going to grab that spring underneath and see if I can, I might have to lift this up a little bit when I'm doing that. Oh, really? Okay, and now if you can see that's gone into the hole, and you should have this so springing back, and this now laid flat. We can now grab that sprocket. I believe it's the number, it will be the side with number 3 stamped in here on the left. So we can put down the top, fit that in. There's some teeth, it's fairly obvious where it goes. We can now work on that next small pull here. So they have you have this nylon, ceramic rather, bushing, seems quite hard. That goes first, and then you have a spring. Now I believe that the shorter tip, it looks like there's a shorter tip on this one, goes facing downwards, and in this position for me it's going into that left hole at the back. And finally the pull itself. Now the other tip of that spring is going to go into the small hole on the pull. So I'm going to just show you how to do that. You need to kind of fit them at the same time, and you can recline it a little bit backwards so that it's somewhat level with the sprocket right here. So I'll just leave that for now to give you a visual. We now have this plate to put on. So that part that's going downwards, that's eventually going to be just in front here of that pull tension back. So if we fit it in this position, like so, we need to push that pull slightly backwards so that it fits in front of it, like right here. I'll zoom in so you have a better idea. So now you can see it, so in front you can kind of push that back, and then there was the other little tip of that pivot that's going through that hole in the plate. And we're going to put a clip down. Now you want to make sure that this plate is fully seated all the way down, and this little tip sticks out so you can push the circlip underneath it. To do that you just shimmy this about a little bit and eventually it clicks down. We've now got that return spring to stick back on, so the hook part is hooking onto here, and the other tip facing downwards is going to go into that hole. on the lever itself. Okay, that's installed. We need to put that pull back on this lever now. So grab the spring. There's one part that's a little bit shorter than the other, and that's the one that's going to go in first and stick through that hole on the left. Now you grab the pull. You want the dot side to be facing towards you. And then we need to put the clip. And that's now clipped on. On the reverse of the lever, we can stick that nylon bushing through here. And now we want to somewhat recline that pull back when we're going to be putting it back into the body, but you want it to go into that spacing. Grab now the other nylon bushing and that very thin spacer, see it through, and we're going to be now pushing it through into the lever like so. Take the return spring and that one part that's hooking, that's going to go behind here, and then you grab this plate which should go roughly here, and now pull the other tip of that spring into that hole on the plate. It's moved. Make sure that the spring is not overlapping underneath, and now we can stick the bolt back on top here. You can put some thread locker. I don't think I'm going to need that on this one. I'm holding the plate with my finger so it doesn't just fall out all of a sudden, and we're there now. We can let go. Stick the cover back on, pod cover, and we'll put that screw in. And there's a tiny little screw here to do as well. Right, let's test all this. Yeah, working excellent, great. Right, so that's number 8 speed done. So thank you for listening, and I hope this helped you repair your 8-speed shifter. I agree that mine looks very shabby, but I'm actually going to be swapping over the stickers, or even probably the whole top cover, onto a nicer looking one that actually has its dial broken, so it's good to swap out. So until next time, peace out.